It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
And welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast, talking property news as we do 7 days a week, and as heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Amazon. Back into another Tuesday after our Monday, July the 9th today. And coming up this morning, we are talking once again about property and your local real estate market. We like to drill down as much as possible on property news and property insights. Arm you with all of the information that we can get our hands on, because as you know, we are not a real estate company and we are not trying to sell you anything, only to impart some of the knowledge from our expert professional real estate contributors that we talk to every day. Talking of experts out in the field, let's catch up with our next guest, who we haven't spoken to for a while, been about 2.5 years. We figured that just off air. Melinda Jennison is from Streamline Properties in Brisbane. Melinda, welcome back to the Real Estate Breakfast. Great to have you on.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be back and hopefully sharing some news about what's happening here in Brisbane with your audience.
Now, you are a buyer's agent in Brisbane, so what are some of the things that you've noticed that are a little bit different in your market this year as opposed to 2023?
Last year, the market really didn't turn around until March, and since then, month on month, we've seen positive growth in the house market and the unit market consistently. So it has been a market where we've seen a lot more FOMO, or fear of missing out, from buyers, because they can see the market shifting every single month in a positive direction, which means that they're concerned that they're being priced out of the market that they're looking to buy into.
You know, we talk about the different speeds of markets. You know, some markets, they're still in that sort of mindset of fear of overpaying. The strongest performer in Australia in some key metrics is Brisbane, but the FOMO is there.
That's right. And that can be also related to the fact that days on market were down about 17% year on year, currently sitting at 19 days on average between when a property is listed for sale and when it is sold. Now, we think anecdotally that may include a period of a conditional time within the contract, because what we're seeing on the ground is that many properties are selling after the very first weekend of open homes, and that's applicable specifically for private treaty sales. So it's a very fast moving market.
Yeah, and as we say, fantastic performer in 2024 for sure, Brisbane. And there are a number of infrastructural developments. Let's not forget about this, because infrastructure is always a component of the property market. So you can rattle off some of those, can you?
Absolutely. So obviously, with Brisbane now hosting the 2032 Olympic Games, a lot of the planned infrastructure projects have been fast-tracked. We've got the Cross River Rail that's going to open up our train network throughout the city, due for completion within the next couple of years. We've got the Brisbane Metro that's going to create a new public transport system that's also due for completion at the end of 2024, as well as a number of very large-scale projects that are associated with the development of the Olympic Games venues. So this infrastructure creates jobs, it creates some economic activity, and this is all very positive for property markets, specifically in and around these areas.
Just on that note, investors, how has that been running for you in 2024 as opposed to last year?
When we look at lending data, we can now see that Queensland has a record rate of loans being written to property investors. So we're certainly seeing property investors move back into the market. Anecdotally speaking, through our own inquiry as buyers agents specialising in Brisbane, we've seen strong inquiry all across the months of 2024, specifically from interstate investors looking to secure their piece of Brisbane now because they can see the performance that has happened in the past 18 months, but they're also looking at the underlying fundamentals and the opportunity that Brisbane presents into the future.
Yeah, and there is this growing demand too for attached dwellings in Brisbane at the moment. The supply just isn't keeping up with the demand, right?
That's exactly right. So in terms of building completions, we hit a peak in 2017 here in Brisbane. Since then, the rate of completions, especially in that attached dwelling market, has been declining. So at the same time, we've seen demand for these types of products increasing. And because of that, there's been a mismatch between supply and demand. And this is why we've seen such strong growth, specifically in the attached dwelling segment of the market in Brisbane over the last 12 to 24 months.
All right, well, we're talking to Melinda there in Queensland. In Brisbane this morning, we'll come back and we'll have a look at some of the values of what the property is doing, the market in value terms and growth there in Brisbane. We'll talk all about that next.
As we approach 1,000 episodes, a big thanks to all of our guests for their insightful knowledge, trends and forecasts. We look forward to another 1,000 episodes together.
So that's the challenge for real estate agents now, is to secure good quality stock, or indeed any stock. Every product that hits the market, we've got 40 or 50 active buyers. I'm not talking about people coming to the home open. I'm talking about people that are just about prepared to put an offer on that as soon as it hits the market.
Yeah, so 8 days on market. I mean, that's terrific, isn't it? I mean, just over a week the property is sold. Do you think there's any mixed messages in the market of Perth at the moment for that very reason that is stopping vendors from listing and moving on?
No, spot on, Craig. We're talking about people that are living in their own home. They are paralysed. You are spot on. So we could triple what's coming on the market if they could find something. That's typically what they say to us. So even going and renting a property is very, very difficult.
Gain insights with exclusive conversations from real estate professionals about buying, selling and investing across Australia.
And it is a Real Estate Tuesday. We are talking with Melinda Jennison from Streamline Property in Brisbane this morning. And Melinda, just yesterday we were talking with Eliza Owen from CoreLogic, and the Australian dwelling values increased a further 0.7%. As we mentioned in June. This is for the up to the financial year end of June, which put $59,000 of an increase into the median dwelling values across Australia, which is now sitting at $794,000. Now, we say that put $59K into homeowners' pockets, but when you look at Brisbane over the last financial year, 20.5%. Average median value home, $859K and change. So people doing a little bit better than $59,000 in Brisbane.
Yes, that's right. We've definitely seen Brisbane being one of the top 3 performing capital city markets throughout all of Australia over the last 12 months. And you've definitely quoted the correct median value for dwellings here in Brisbane being $859,240. When we look at the house market in Brisbane, Brisbane now has the second most expensive house market behind Sydney and Canberra compared to all other capital city markets, sitting at $953,028 as a median house value. And the house market here in Brisbane has seen an annual return of 15.2%. So when we quantify that at that median value level, the median value of a house in Brisbane has shifted $146,200 over the last 12 months. So that's a big shift in values. Compare that to the unit market. In the last 12 months, we've seen 18.8% growth in the unit market in Brisbane. This is attached dwellings, so it does include units and townhouses. The current median is sitting at $622,567, and that's actually been a shift of $110,305 over the last 12 months. So we've seen some very strong performance across both segments of the market here in Brisbane.
Yeah, and I just want to pick up on that point because obviously you're dealing with, from time to time, first home buyers, particularly when mum and dad are paying for that service. And you can see why people are just so frustrated that they are finding getting that mortgage a little bit more difficult and the market is just getting away. It always used to be the life raft in a way, get into a unit, it's much cheaper. But when you talk about that growth in the unit market over the last 12 months, that paints a pretty dire picture for people trying to get into the market.
It is tough, and it has been tough for first home buyers for some time now because the pace at which they can put away their money to save for a deposit is being outpaced by the market growth that is happening on a month-by-month basis. So we are seeing more and more first home buyers turn to the bank of mum and dad, looking to, help them to get into the market. And that's being demonstrated on the ground by some of those parents helping their sons and daughters at auction just to secure properties. So that FOMO, or that fear of missing out, is really an intergenerational thing as parents are seeing their children priced out of property markets, and they're doing whatever they can to help them get a head start on the property ladder.
Now, I've got to ask this question because people listening this morning will remember just last week we were talking to a property buyer in Sydney telling us the story about how she had to fire the parents off the job because she wasn't making much headway with the kids. Have you got any interesting stories to share in Brisbane in terms of mum and dad becoming all just a little bit too much in the decision making?
Look, I think that from our experience, we're certainly seeing mums and dads dig deep into their pockets, especially at auction when they see that their family are missing out or being outbid by others. And we've seen some very strong prices being paid by parents who are bidding on behalf of their children because they're obviously sick of seeing them miss out at auction. I think the more people that are involved in the decision-making process complicates the purchasing journey. So, if mum and dad are involved, it's so important that they're aligned with what their kids do want when they're buying into the market, because it can really complicate the process, as you've pointed out.
So is it fair to say that the parents hit that buyer's fatigue? So they've seen, their kids miss out on so many of these properties and they reach a point where maybe they had a limit and they've said, no, to hell with this. We're going to ramp it up a little bit more. If it's going to cost us an extra $50,000 to get the right property, let's just buy it.
We certainly feel that has been the case on some of the properties that we have seen sell, because when you find an objective value or you assess the objective value of a property, we're seeing many properties sell well above where they should sell based on that emotional buying. So yes, there's definitely been a sense of, people are fed up, they're wanting to stretch because they're sick of looking or they're sick of missing out. And so every time they miss out, they become more motivated to stretch that little bit more for the next property. And the reality is, in Brisbane, we have a situation of very low listings. So there's less stock available for people to choose from. At the same time, we have heightened demand. So competition is very high. It is tough to buy. And this situation, or these market conditions, bring about this type of buyer behaviour.
All right, we'll leave it there. Good on you, Melinda. All the very best with the remainder of 2024. The second half certainly sounds like you're busy, which is the main thing. And thanks very much for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning. Enjoy your Tuesday.
Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for having me again.
Listen to in-depth discussions with industry leaders on investing options, understanding different suburbs with insider perspectives and exclusive tips. We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.